Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm Tony, and if you follow me you know that we are well and truly stuck into the build of this incredible 1:6 scale SD.KFZ7, or the German half-track from the Second World War period. Another 1:6 scale monster kit from Armortek. And as I said many times, this is a super challenging kit to build, but really rewarding, and I'm enjoying every single moment of it. So I really hope that you are enjoying the build series of this. And if you have stumbled across my channel and you feel like subscribing, please do, because there's a huge amount of work to do on this. And of course there's the back catalogue about this and all the other models I've built in the past. Right, just to recap, so in the last video we did the wheel arches. I finished off all the accessories that I wanted to build onto each of the wheel arches. I did my little mod of the little step and the grate on there, and I'm really pleased with how that looks. And once we get zoomed in, when I come to install these on there, you'll see it a little bit closer. Got everything painted. Because of the weather, it's taken longer, so this has been about 4 days since I've painted these wheel arches, and it's time now that they go on. And I must admit, the finish you get on this with the new paints I'm using from Monster Colour, the King's Army paints, is incredible. It's just so smooth and so lovely, and so it feels so durable. Now, obviously I did a lot of work on these wheel arches with the spray putty previously to get this finish, because it was very heavily cast, as you recall. But if you're new to my channel, you don't get this in the kit. You have to do a lot of work, and there is a video in the members area that covers that off. But I'm chuffed to bits with how these have come out. Now the only thing I need to do with these before they go onto the chassis is I want to weather the inside. I've left the casting on the inside. Now I just want to weather that so that it can go on, and I don't have to worry about removing the wheels to do that at a later stage. And in today's session, it will be putting these on. I'm going to install the radiator onto the mounting plate. I'm going to put the lighting loom in for the lights. I may or may not go on and put the headlights on yet. I'm not sure. It depends on whether I feel that's going to impede any other parts of the build on the front. But when I've done all of this, I've set aside all the parts I'm going to need to build the rear tow system on the back here, and that means I can finish off the winch once and for all and get that completed. So I'm looking forward to doing that as well. In fact, I'm really looking forward to seeing these wheel arches on the chassis. It's going to really transform this. And then I may go on and install the bulkhead, which I previously built in the last video as well. So that's all assembled. I may well go on and install that in its final location once the wheel arches are on. But I probably, if I install that, I will not use thread locker, because I have a feeling I may have to remove that to get access to some of the cabling if I'm, want to get to the point of finishing off all the electronics. But anyway, as I normally do, I'll make that decision nearer the time. So thanks again for all your amazing support. Those subs are incredible, and I can't tell you what it means to me. And of course, also thank you to all my members. You know who you are, and that extra level of support is also incredible. Thank you. And a final thank you to Peter for allowing me to build your model, Peter. I'm enjoying every moment of it, and I really hope that you're enjoying the build as well and approve of my build methods. So now I'm going to in the normal sense, I'm going to reposition the camera. What we do is we'll get on, we'll start weathering these wheel arches, then we can go ahead and install them, and then move this forward to a stage that I'm really excited about. So I'll do that and be back. Okay, I think we can get started. First things first, I'm going to put these gloves on, because the streaking paint that I use is an enamel based paint, and it's really difficult to get off your hands. Now, I'm not going to do any work to the outside surface just yet. I don't want to do that, because I want to wait until I've got the entire model complete. So what I'm going to do is just lay down a bit of protection on there, leave that there, because what I want to do is just get some weathering on the inside of this, because that would make sense. But I'm not heavily weathering this, because Peter doesn't want that, and I agree. So I'm using this streaking paint. It's called streaking grime. I use this in all my sort of weathering techniques, and I've got a sponge here, which I've pinched from my wife's cleaning cupboard. Don't say anything. And I'm now just all I'm going to do is just work on the inside of this arch. Just going to apply that evenly across the internal surfaces, because obviously, even if this was being driven in the desert, grime and grease and everything else will build up on the inside here. And the thing that I like about it is the fact that because it's textured on the inside, it gives a more realistic feel. And this sponge will just make sure I get an even, initially all I want is an even spread. And I haven't put a lot of paint. This paint goes a long way. It also takes a bit of time to dry, but what I'm going to do is, once I've got this done, and I think I'm happy with that, so that's what I'm looking for, that kind of finish on the inside. Now I'm going to put this in front of my heater, and then what I'll do is I'll just build up a slightly darker version just on the back of it here, and then once that's dry we can then get it onto the chassis. That's both wheel arches now with their first wash, if you like. Now I'm going to go on and do a little bit more work on the weathering. Just going to pop that one to one side. I'll do this one with you and then I'll do the other one off camera. So that's it with its initial wash on. Now I'm going to get the same streaking paint, this streaking grime paint, and using my brush I'm going to target areas that I feel would be more heavily, so yeah, more grime, more build up of grime, which would be the back of the wheel arch here. I do enjoy this stage. And then just take the excess off the brush, just using a bit of tissue, and then use the brush to just feather that around. Any overrun that's gone on the edge there I'm not bothered about, because I can just wipe that and that will actually help with the weathering. Likewise on the back there. And then I'm going to come to the front here, do the same. And just feather that around using the brush. And again, this is your own personal touch on this, so don't get too hung up. And I guess you don't even need to do this, but I just think it'll look right. Now a lot of this you're not going to see. Obviously because the massive big front wheel will be covering it. But I think you start to get to see the gist of what I'm trying to do. Bit more feathering required. Just lightly brushing that around. And I'm going to put a little bit more where I'd expect to see it quite dark. I think I'm getting close to where I want to be with this actually. That's pretty good. Again, just take the excess of that. And then just lightly feather that around. And I think you get the gist of what I'm trying to do there. Obviously when that's on the vehicle like that and the wheels here, I think that will look really smart. So I'll go on and do the other one, and then once I've got them both done we can put them onto the chassis. Like I've said many times, this is a very challenging model, and we've just come across another problem. Not a problem, but another slight challenge. So I'm just going to position the the wheel arch just on there like that for now. I've elevated the motorcycle jack so we can get a good look at this. I'm just going to put a clamp on this. So that's more or less where that wheel arch should go. Right, let's talk about lighting. I want to get the lighting loom in, right? So I'm just going to rotate this around a little bit for you. The light cable, if you like, is going to be presented. Let me just put that so I can actually see what I'm doing, sorry. Up in that position there. And then we need to consider the route for this cable. And if I spin this back round, there's no obvious hole in the chassis that the cable can pass through to run down the center line of the main chassis. So I don't want the cable running on the outside of this, just in case it ever comes detached and ends up getting caught up in the tracks. We don't want that. So I'm thinking about drilling a hole through the chassis, sort of more or less in this location here, so that I can run the cable along here and through the chassis and then present it on the inside. There's no obvious other cable route that I can see. Nothing. No holes in the chassis for it or anything like that. And as I said, I don't want to run the cable all the way down this part in case it could ever get detached and then, yeah, it'll just get caught up in the tracks and snap. So we don't want to do that. So that's what I think I'm going to have to do. I'm going to have to drill a little hole through here. Then I can dress the cable through. But before I can do any of that, I'm going to have to detach. This lighting loom is spectacularly long because the vehicle's very long, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take, there's a junction box here. And we've got the both of the negatives wired into one and both of the positives wired into another. So I'm going to just undo that. Take those out, and then that makes life a little bit easier. So I'm just going to twist those together so they don't come apart. Just before I start to drill, I was just looking at another alternative, and possibly if I swing this around here like that, I could thread the cable underneath and present it in the middle like that. But I don't know whether I want to see that cable. You can see that there. That's going to be quite visual, isn't it? I'll tell you what I'm going to do before I do anything else. I'm going to put some heat shrink around this because I don't like to see these cables exposed anyway, and this little bulb is quite vulnerable on the end. So I've got some narrow gauge heat shrink. I'm just going to slide a couple of these on. Just put it around the, I don't know if you can see that, but just so I can just put it around the collar of that bulb. I think that just helps protect it. Let's try and overlap one to the other. Like that. Now I'm just going to get my heat gun. All that does is gives me added protection onto the vulnerable little cables, like that. And I'm wondering whether now, if I present that up into that, and then now pull this around so that it comes past this second cross member here. No point going in the middle because you've got the plate that goes over the top of it, and that plate will have to end up sitting on the cable, which we don't want. So let's have a look at that now. Is that slightly better? Because you don't see the red cable. Just want to try and work this out so it makes more sense. Or is that going to look better dressed along there? Tucked up into the web of the chassis. Not sure. And then present it through a hole there. Let me ponder that a little bit longer. Okay, so I've had a good old ponder and a bit of a change of plan. So what I'm thinking now, and I'm going to show you what I've done already, is I'm going to drill a hole through the center of this cross member here, just to run the cable. So I can go the shortest possible route up between these two cross members here and then through into this. And because this is set down here, it allows me to pass the cables underneath without interfering with the plate that goes over the top, like so. And I don't think there's going to have any structural issues with this at all, because it's a massive big chunky aluminium block, and all I've done is put a 4mm hole through it. I'm now just going to open that hole up a little bit, and what I'll do is once I've got the hole opened, we'll be able to demonstrate how it looks in the shortest possible route. So I'm just going to take a wider drill now. Right, that's the hole opened up. Just give that a bit of a dust off. I've gone through at a bit of an angle. Now I just need to take that rough surface off the back of that. That's that. Now if I pass this side cable through, and what I will do is I'll put a bit of heat shrink where it goes through, just to protect the cable again. And I'll pull that. Hopefully you can see that being the shortest possible route, it's hardly noticeable, especially when the vehicle's on the floor. So I'm happy with that. So I'm just going to put some heat shrink on that. Just going to mark where it needs to go. And I'm not that concerned about the colour of this, so I'll probably go, I don't know, something like red. So it's up to that point there. Now that will pass through there now and will be protected in its little bit of a heat shrink. Perfect. You can see that. I could do exactly the same now the other side when I get round to that, so I'm really keen now. There's enough room for that to pass through, so I'm happy with that. I'm happy with the visible amount of cable that's on there. It just needs to be pulled a bit tighter, and once I've got in there and I've got that where I want it, I'll probably plug that hole with blue tack. Right, now let's get this wheel arch on. I might as well keep the vehicle elevated on this motorcycle jack because it just makes life easy for me, and I think it actually looks makes it look quite straightforward for you. So I'm just going to pop that light fitting out again. Right, so this is supported with one of these rods here, and I just want to make sure that that actually still fits into the chassis, and it does. I think it just gets glued into position. So what I'll do is I'm going to use, what am I going to use? I'm going to use super glue. I'm going to put the super glue inside the hole rather than on the rod itself. Something coming out of that? Yeah. This is one of the holes I did plug up when I was painting it, so it's going to be a decent metal to metal finish. I'm going to just tip this up slightly, pass the rod through the hole in the wheel arch. I have to put some weathering on that as well. Just going to see if I can manipulate that into the hole. It's in, just needs a bit of gentle persuasion. Look in there. Yes. That's all the way in. I'm just having a look in there. Yeah, that's all the way in. Perfect. And my two holes are still lined up on the top here. So these are an 8mm M3 button fixing. And with a degree of confidence, because I've pre-checked these before I painted them, that should now go in, and it does. Really pleased with that. Not sure if that fixing is going to be on show or not, so that might have to be spot painted. This has only got two fixings in because it's got its little support rod over that end. Sorry, I should show you that. That is it. Nice, tight, everything as is. So that's it. It's in. Eventually, look at that. And I don't know if you can now pick up the detail on the little grated step there. I think that looks really smart. And of course, the mud guard will come down, and then I've got to try and sort of get a couple of fixings in here and here, which I think I can get through the other side there, like that. So that'll be no issues. Well, it'll be tricky, but no major issues. So that's that. Really chuffed to bits with that. Happy as Larry, actually, whoever Larry is. Right, I'll go on and do the other side now. I'll go on and do the other lighting part once this is on, because I know I'm with a degree of confidence now. I'm quite happy with the way that works. Right, so first things first, let's get this rod. I'm going to pass that through just to make sure it's, whoops, it is actually going through, and it is. Get the old super glue. Pushing a bit of that into the hole. Just rotate that round. I'm going to angle that as I did before. That's it. That's kind of in. And down. I just want to make sure, excuse me, just going to look through there to make sure that's all the way in, and that just needs a little tap using the rubber part of the mallet, and just bang that in like that. Just make sure that's all the way in that hole, and it is. So that's that. Now just get another couple of fixings. Thread locker. And then we can wind that in. So glad that we test fitted these. That's it, nice and tight. Perfect. Nice and easy once you've done all the prep work. Right, that's that. Now I'm going to go on and do the other cable. Same deal as previously. Just going to slide a couple of these heat shrinks over. And what I want to do is I want to kind of partially cover the joint between the cable and the light bulb. You can see that. And then I want to try and overlap the bottom heat shrink over the top one. That's it. Heat gun. I'm a big fan of using these sort of things. It just helps protect the cables because they're very narrow gauge cable and very vulnerable. So that's that. Now we can present that. Underneath. Push that up into position. And then I'm just going to measure. So I'm going to put another heat shrink on this where it passes through that hole. And the only reason I'm putting a heat shrink on this is just in case it gets caught on anything through the hole. The heat shrink will protect it. Just taking up the slack of the cable. That's brilliant. Right, so I'm just going to mark that again. Mark it on the red cable so it's obvious. Pull that back out again. I should have been more prepared. Another one of these red ones will do, I think. Thread that through. Hang on. Take it up to the marker. Just hold that there. And that's that. Now we can plug this through. And that's them both protected with their heat shrink. Now I'm going to just pull these as tight as I can without damaging the cable. Just having a look underneath there, that's good. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to plug that with a bit of, well, I say blue tack, I'm using grey tack. And that just stops those cables from inadvertently slipping out and starting to sag the other end. I'm going to do both sides. And this stuff is incredible because when it goes off fairly hard. Just plugging that into that hole. I'm sorry, I know you can't see that, but you get the gist. Now that cable's not going anywhere, look, nice and tight. Just that's that. Now the only other thing I want to do on here, on these two front headlights, I'm happy with, I think I'm happy with the position. Let's just pop one of these on, check the height of it. I don't want to see the bulb. That's about right, I think. So that's about the right height. And again, I'm just going to use grey tack. We haven't got grey tack. Blue tack is just as good. Just to plug that hole, stop that from slipping out. I'm quite confident that I can put these in now. I mean, look at that, look at the difference of that. Just transformation, isn't it? Why don't we put these in now? Okay, I'm going to. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the B7000 glue on this, and the reason why I'm doing that is this B7000 glue doesn't react with the chrome paint, whereas a super glue will. And I'm just going to just put a dollop, and it also allows me a little bit more time to move the light into its final position. That's going to take a month of Sundays to go off, so that's good. So I'm just going to, again, I'm just using my eye just to make sure that that is okay, positioned okay. Just going to move that up and down so I can get the glue to sort of go all the way around the target area. So let's do exactly the same thing the other end. Find the cup. Pop that over. This is my older tube of B7000. I've lost the needle on it, so it's not that accurate, but it's good enough for doing this. That's fine. That's that. Now I just want to get these lined up. Need a straight edge. Perfect. So that's that. Look at that. Really has taken shape, isn't it? Just so quickly. Wow. Super pleased with that. Really pleased. I'll wait till that all goes off before I put the sort of the protective lens on this one here, the guard. Right. So what's next? I'm going to put this plate on. Just ahead of putting the plate on, I just want to reconnect up the wiring loom for the lighting. So I'm just putting the two black cables back together and then putting them in the negative side of the terminal block. Tighten that up. The only reason I'm doing this now is it's one of those sort of jobs that it's quite easy to forget. Right, and I'm just going to coil up the lighting loom, if you like, just out of the way for now until we revisit the electronics and the layout. But I won't do that until I've got the smoke pack and everything else. Still not sure exactly where that works and how the smoke pack works and whether in fact there's an exhaust. I'm pretty sure there must be. Must come with the smoke pack. If you have built one of these and you've done the smoke pack, I'll be interested to know in the comments, please, guys. Right, so that's that. That's reconnected, and all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to leave that up here, out of the way. Excuse me. So that's, I know that's all connected. Right. Let's now get on and do the plate for the front. Oh, and also the tow hook. So there's 4 holes in the radiator housing. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4 corresponding holes on this plate itself. Now I'm not going to put the 2 in the back because I've got to wait for the battery tray to go through here, but I'm fairly confident we can go ahead and put these ones in. So the first thing I'm going to do is just pop a 10mm butt fixing through there, and we'll get the first one in. That goes in there like that. Just going to hold the back of the fixing, some thread locker on that, and just wind that nut on. You see I've only just primed the back of this, no need to paint it. And for some reason that is being double awkward. Okay, that's that. Holding the back fixing now by the head, I'm just tightening up that nut. Just going to align the holes. Pop the other one through. Again, just hold that from the back. I'll wipe all that off in a moment. Nice and tight. Just wipe all that excess off. And that's that on the plate. Now we can go ahead and install this onto the front. Right, so now we can put this onto the front, and it just simply goes in that position there. And I'm fairly confident I can still access the back to get fixings in for the battery tray, and when I come to fix the battery tray on the bulkhead as well. So I've got a couple of small, these are 6mm M2.5 fixings, which I've already put a bit of paint on, and I'm just going to wind them in. I'm not using thread locker for this, just in case I need to remove this. Just going to wind those in on the front like that. Don't over tighten. I might actually fill those holes again because they are on display, but we'll see how we get on. And that's that. Look at that. What a transformation. It really is starting to take shape, isn't it? I absolutely love this. Beautiful, beautiful kit. Right, so we might as well now go and do the little front tow bar or tow hook. And I've already sort of painted these. Now I'm pretty confident I'm not going to need to take these out, so I will put a little bit of, just a tiny dab of thread locker on that. And now there's only one way this can fit. It's got a curved top, and that should, that's it. Fixings just come out. Pop that out for now. Just tap that in. It's only where the paint's gone on it. That's up there nice and tight. And I'm going to carefully wind these fixings in. The other side. And that's operating as it should still. That's going up and down. all painted. Don't know whether to put a nut on the bottom of that, because I don't know if that will pop out. I might decide to do that. So that's it. Look at that. What a leap forward, especially on the front of the vehicle. Absolutely love it. Stunningly beautiful thing, I think. Anyway, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I know it's not my kit, but I'm building it, and I just think it is a stunning looking kit. So that's it. Right, so now I'm going to go on and we're going to start talking about the rear tow system and the winch rollers. Sorry, just before we go on to the rear tow system and winch system, there is a couple of more fixings that go on the front here, and I didn't forget them. It's just I made a decision early doors that I wasn't going to use fixings here, but I was going to wait until the front wheel arches were on to see how strong they are. Now, with the support bar on the back and the two fixings that are in the front, I just don't see this going anywhere, and I don't want to keep filling all these rivets. So I've got a box of copper studs, and I found some that fit perfectly in these holes. Look at that. And I just think that they tie in nicely with the ones that are on the wheel arch. So I'm not going to bother putting a fixing in there. Sorry, Armortek. I'm actually going to put, and I think Peter will approve, so I'm just going to put some glue on the end of that. And then I can spot paint those. I just think they're going to look better. What do you think? I mean, the reference books I've got show a lot of studding on this. Obviously I'm not going to replicate that on the front. I am looking to do that on the sides though. Right, I think that's better. And then when that's all dry, I can then spot paint those and you'd never even notice. Wipe off any excess glue. Now we'll go on and do the rear tow system and winch system. So next thing we're going to tackle is the rear tow hook and pulley system for the winch. Small section, but quite a lot of parts involved in this. So I'm looking forward to getting this done, because then I can eventually or ultimately get the winch completed. And all of this is going to go on the back section here. And I understand that this hole here, this one here, is where I'm going to present the cable for the winch through, and that's going to go into the little pulley system, and then there's a little roller system down here that will help and aid the winch in and out of the vehicle. So that's that. So I've got all my parts. Just bring some more light back onto that. I've got all my parts. As you can see, there's quite a lot of parts. I've also pulled all the fixings out that I'm going to need. So what I'm going to do now is just open all these bags up so we can see what we've got. So in this first one here, we've got a spring. I believe that sort of sits within the shaft. So that's that. This is called a tow bar clamp. Just pop that out. Don't quite know how that all goes together just yet. I'm quite confident to be able to sort of get all these parts out, because they're quite easily identifiable with the illustrated instructions that Armortek give you. Little roller, big roller. And then there's another roller here. Sort of pin. Not sure what that one is. Just move that bag to one side there. More parts of the tow bar set up. Quite happy to get all these out of the bags, because as I said, they're quite unique, so very easy to identify on the instructions once you've found them all, of course. I mean, again, they're all labelled up, they're all coded. And there's a corresponding packing list that tells you which bag to look in. So Armortek do an amazing job of assisting you with this tricky part. So that's it. All the bits I'm going to need all the fixings. Having gone through what is involved in this, unfortunately I'm not going to get this painted and put onto the chassis today, because all of this will need to be primed and painted before it goes onto the chassis. But there's a little bit of work involved in putting this together, and I'll just go through it now. And what I've done is I've separated them into sort of little groups of the key assemblies that are required, and I think this is pretty smart. So we get this long 50mm M6 cap fixing, and I must admit, when I got the bag of fixings from Peter, I wondered why there was one solitary one, but this is it. This is now explains why. So first thing they ask us to do is to put a washer, which comes with the kit. These are like an M6 washer, a spring that goes over the top of that, and another washer. Then that goes through the shaft and presents itself on the end here. And then we have this little sort of top hat section that goes and slides down into that, and then that piece here winds onto that, and what that does is this. Look at that. Gives us a sort of almost a shock absorber setup. So as this would be pulling, when it initiates the first toe, that will spring out and then take the shock out of it. Just amazing. The only thing is, I don't know whether this is supposed to run or just that. I'm thinking maybe leave it. Temptation is to put some Loctite on that, but it's not going to come out. I think that's part of it. I think that's supposed to do that. So that's really smart. I really like that. Really like that. Next thing we need to do is put these pins in. These M6 10mm pins. And they go in either side. Might just, that looks a little bit tight, but I might just give that some persuasion. Not sure I need to glue this. And what I don't want to do is trap the bolt. It's not quite square. That's in there. Then the other one goes on this side. Like that. That's gone in quite nice and easy. I think that one needs to go in a little bit more. Still want to be able to pull this. So you don't want to be, that there. If I push that in there too much, I can feel it grinding on that. But I think this one still needs to go in a bit more, and it's not in there square, so I need to get my pliers and just pull that out. Okay, so that's now resolved. That's in square and to the depth that I want it to be. Now I've taken everything out so I can then judge the depth of this pin going in to be the same as that one. It's another 10mm M6 pin. I'm just going to put some Loctite on that, just so that get it on the edge, and take it off the face of that, and then slide that one in. That's going in a little bit easier than the other one, but I want them to be the same depth, and I'm just looking down the shaft. Just needs a bit of a wipe that excess glue off. Now we can put this back down, and we can put that little top hat section back on. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some blue thread locker on the end of that thread. Just don't want that sort of unwinding itself. Wind that back on. And I'm not sure, I think the orientation is that this is directly opposite this, so that's in that kind of orientation like that. And then I'm just going to tap make sure that that's still operating as it should, and it is. Sorry about the banging and the camera shaking. That's about right, I think. Now these parts here sit over the top of this, and that allows it all to sort of rotate a little bit, and just very clever, very, very clever. But this doesn't go on just yet. So I think that's as far as we're going to go with that particular part. We can set that to one side now, because ultimately what goes, actually we can probably do this bit now as well, look. So this here is the longer pin, 20mm pin. That goes, let me just give that a wipe over on the inside of that. It's going to be tricky to get paint where I want it, but it'd be easier to do this off the chassis rather than being on the chassis. Just going to make sure that that pin passes through there, and it does. Let's also make sure that that pin passes through there, and it does. So that'll need a bit of glue just to stop that from travelling. So this now goes on to this. That pin then passes through. And I'm just going to put, and that rotates like that. So that is like that. Look at that, just lovely, isn't it? What a lovely detail. Now I'm going to put a little bit of glue on here. I'll probably put a bit of the 638 just on the end. Just using my finger just to, just don't want that to come off. And that will still allow that to rotate around. Because the pin's rotating with it. Perfect. Perfect. Right. So that's that. That's as far as we can go with that. There is another pin that goes through there like that, and a nut to go on the end, which we can do. And then that will go off, and we'll paint that on my paint bench. So that's that part done. So the next part will be this. This is the top retainer. Just give this a bit of a wipe over. Same with this. And then that, remember we talked about these little slots on here, that gets bolted onto this piece here with the hole pointing down, because that's going to sit on top of that, like that. And then this sits over the top of that and gets bolted into this piece and rides on that, and that's what stops this. I guess this is what traps this from moving, and then that will be lifted up, and that will allow that some additional articulation. So these are just bolted in little 6mm hex fixings. Now I don't want this to be too tight, because I do want it to articulate for Peter. So I'm just going to put a little bit of blue thread locker on that to stop it from unwinding itself. And I'm just going to hand wind that in, because the danger is you don't want that moving and then this turning and then undoing itself. At the same time, you want it to be loose. You can see that the nut is moving with it, so hopefully the thread locker will do its job. Might actually put a bit more on that. It's designed to articulate, so I want it to articulate like that. But obviously, if we do that up too tight, what will happen is the nut will work itself loose if we don't put some thread locker on it. And also, if it's up too tight, it will not articulate. So just again, I'm just going to wind that in by hand. And then that is ready to go onto the spray bench. along with the bottom one. So this sits on the top. There you go. That sits on the top like that. That locks into that, and then this one sits on the bottom like that. And then both of these get bolted through the chassis from the back of the chassis out. So that's that. They can go onto the paint bench, and then we have the little roller for the winch itself. Again, really nice little detail. I love the fact that Armortek really sort of think about these things. Right, so this the larger shape here is for the larger roller, which is this, and that sits in there. There's no thread in there, but there is a thread in this. So we retain these by these. Actually, you don't need any blue on that, so just going to wind that in. These are like little M2.5 8mm fixings. So I'm going to wind that all the way in. Because there's no thread on the roller itself, that will allow that to roll but at the same time retaining it. That's smart, really smart. Now, let me see. Is there enough room for the cable to pass through? I'm pretty sure there will be. Yeah, I think there will be. So that goes there and it's on the top, and then do the same thing with these little retaining button fixings. Position that there. That can get wound all the way in. And then we do the other side. That's it. And I can see that that cable will pass through that. Yes, it will. Perfect. So that's ready to go onto the paint bench. Just give that another wipe over there. So that's that part ready to go onto the paint bench. All that. And the only other thing we've got left is this little roller that actually attaches directly onto the chassis, which I'm thinking I can paint that in situ. So let's I'll rotate the chassis round and I'll get this installed and then show you how you do that. Slightly different angle this time. So this is the roller. I believe that the winch cable comes out of here and then comes through and then sort of tucks behind, and that's what stops it from springing around on the outside of the vehicle here. But it's not very clear on the instructions, but there is this fitting here that comes with the kit, and that is an M5 thread that goes into this threaded hole here. That's what I'm saying. I think this makes more sense to put this on now, and then because I can mask off this bit so I can get in there and spray that. I'm pretty sure, pretty confident I can do that. Just going to put a bit of blue thread locker on that because I don't want that coming undone. So that winds in. Well, it should wind in. No, it's winding in now. That's in there nice and tight. This little roller then sits over the top of that, like that. And then it's retained by an M3 6mm hex fitting with a washer. And the washer will allow that to hopefully spin. I'll do it up and then we'll probably slacken it off to allow it to do its thing. perfect, spinning nicely. So I will paint that in situ. I'll just mask all this off and I'll prime that and paint that in situ. Right, so just to talk you through, this will eventually go through here like that, and then we've got the top fixing that gets bolted into that, and the bottom one that gets bolted into that position. If I just, that's it. And then obviously we've got the, that's unbelievable. There we go. That gets all bolted together into position like that. And then we've got the toe part here, which is the wrong way around, but that's the right, that's the right way around, sorry, that one. I just think it looks really smart. And then we've got the little roller that will go in that position there, like that. And then what will happen is the cable will be presented out of here, dressed down, and I believe we then tuck the cable in behind here to stop the cable sort of dangling around here. So that's the whole purpose of that. So I'm going to go and have a bit of a tidy up. I'm not going to get the paint on these today, and I'll come back to camera to talk about the next step. But I really hope you've enjoyed that. A lot of work done today. It probably doesn't feel like it, but there is a lot of work, and I'll swing it around in a minute, and you can see the front now that I've spot painted those rivet fixings as well. So that's it. That's about as far as I can go today. I've just run out of time. But what we have done is we have assembled all the parts that I'm going to need to install on the rear of the vehicle. So they're all ready to go onto my paint bench, and the next time you see those, they will be painted, ready to go in, and I won't install them until such time I'm ready to film that. But look at it. Just look at it. I love it. I just love it. Peter, this is an amazing kit. And I really hope that you still approve of my build methods, and I really hope that you love the way it looks, as I do. I think it's stunning. And I must admit, those paints that I'm using now, the King's Army paints from Monster Colours, are incredible. And so if you're in the market for painting one of these amazing kits, or any kind of military kit, or any paint in that respect, please check out the link in the description of this video, because there's a Tony's Workshop special discount for the paints that they supply. So I really hope that helps you as well. But I just love it. I have subsequently went ahead and I re-sprayed the whole front of that, so that all the rivets I put in, the copper rivets, are now painted, and I think it just looks stunning. The lights look amazing. I will put the guards on them at some point in the future. The bulkhead is not installed, it's just sitting up here loose, because I want to hold off until I get the audio kit from Armortek. And once I've got the audio kit from Armortek, I can install it into the battery tray, put the battery tray in and finish that off all together. And then of course we can then finish off the winch at the back. So hopefully by the time I see you next, everything will be here that I need to finish off the front and the back, and then we can move forward with the rest of the build. And what I'm thinking about doing in the next stage is the mud guards. I'm certainly going to get them painted, because I've got the paint benches all set up. When I'm painting these, I can paint the mud guards as well, and it looks as if these are all one piece. And I seem to recall when I went to the factory, they were making them as one piece, so that's a relief, because when I did my M26, they were all in sections and it was a bit tricky. So I'm looking forward to getting these out. I'm going to leave them in the brown paper for now so they don't oxidize. I'll get some primer, get some top coat, certainly on the underside, maybe not on the top side, and then work out whether or not they can go in ahead of the rest of the bodywork. Don't know yet. But the next stage after that will be trying to finalise the electronics, so that I've got everything working, singing and dancing for Peter before I go ahead and finish off the bodywork. But that's a long way off. So I'm going to sign off today by just saying a massive thank you to all of you, all that amazing support, all those comments and all those thumbs up. If you have stumbled across my channel, please think about subscribing, because I've got a long way to go on this amazing kit. And another thank you to my members. You all know who you are. The extra level of support is so welcomed and really appreciated. Thank you. And finally, another thank you to Peter. Peter, I love your kit, and I really do appreciate you allowing me to build it for you. So I'm just going to sign off now, finally, by saying I am Tony. I absolutely love building these kits, and I look forward to seeing you in my next session. See you soon.